You ever walk in on something that makes your soul leave your body for a second? I don't mean something like your dog chewing your tax documents or your kid coloring on the walls. I mean something so wrong, so upside down, your brain refuses to process it at first. Like it tries to politely reject the information, the way your mouth does when you accidentally sip sour milk. That was me. One average Thursday night. One ruined perception of reality. Let me rewind a little. My name's Jake Holloway. I'm 38, I work in IT, and until about 3 months ago, I was married to a woman named Marissa. Long dark hair, a smile that could sell you insurance you don't need, and apparently morals that couldn't survive a strong breeze. We'd been married 8 years. Not perfect years, no marriages, but we had routines. Shared Google calendars. Inside jokes. A freaking isn't hers towel set. You don't buy monogram towels with someone you think is gonna sleep with your dad. Yeah. My dad? Gary. Let me tell you about Gary. Picture a man in his mid-60s, who still wears Axe body spray and says things like, "I still got it," despite having pulled his hamstring trying to demonstrate a TikTok dance at Thanksgiving. He's the kind of guy who flirts with waitresses half his age and thinks, dad jokes are for amateurs. He goes straight for divorced uncle material. And somehow, my wife found that irresistible. I didn't find out in some dramatic soap opera way. No lipstick on the collar. No hotel receipts in the glove box. Just vibes. Cold, horrible vibes. Marissa started acting weird first. Clingy 1 minute, distant the next. And Gary, who usually couldn't shut up about the local diner's pastrami, suddenly had nothing to say when he came over. They got quiet around each other in that suspicious way, not the, we fought, kind of quiet. The, we've seen each other naked, and now we can't make eye contact in front of your son, kind of quiet. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. I mean, who cheats with their father-in-law? That's not just a red flag. That's a full red parade. Then, one night, I left work early. Caught the 4:10 instead of the 5:25. I had a headache, and I just wanted to crash on the couch with some takeout and a couple hours of mindless TV. Maybe Marissa and I could actually have dinner together for once. You know, like people who still like each other. I pulled into the driveway. Her car was there. So was Gary's. Now, my first thought wasn't suspicion. Honestly, it was, oh no, did someone die? Because that's the only situation where I could imagine them hanging out alone. I walked in through the garage. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Like horror movie quiet. I set down the food on the counter. Walked toward the hallway. Heard something. I won't describe what I heard. This isn't that kind of story. But let's just say, I've been haunted by less disturbing sounds. I turned the corner. And there they were. My wife. My father. Entangled like two teenagers in a Lifetime movie gone terribly off script. They froze. I froze. It was like an emotional car crash, except nobody died. Just my sanity. Nobody spoke. Marissa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Gary stood there in his undershirt, looking like a man who just realized he slept with his son's wife, and now had to explain it using adult words. I left. Not like dramatically stormed out. More like walked backwards slowly, like I'd wandered into a bear's den and didn't want to provoke it. Drove to my friend's place. Slept on his couch for 2 nights. Ate nothing but pretzels and whiskey. You know, the 5-star heartbreak diet. And then, after the fog cleared, I realized something. I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. Not the throw-a-chair angry. I'm not a violent guy. But the kind of angry that starts plotting. If they wanted to betray me like some Greek tragedy, I could at least return the favor with some flair. Something classy. thought out. Poetic. So I made a plan. Not to hurt them physically. Please, I have bills and a mortgage. I'm not going to jail over these two. But mentally? Emotionally? Socially? Oh, I was going to flip the script. And if they thought I was going to stay broken, they didn't know me at all. So, after 2 days of couch crashing and nursing my heartbreak with pretzels and the cheapest whiskey my buddy Nate had in his cabinet, bless him, he drinks like a 22-year-old on a budget, I sat up on that lumpy sofa, rubbed my crusty eyes, and said 5 words I never thought I'd say. I'm gonna ruin their lives. Now don't get me wrong. I wasn't trying to go full Batman villain. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted to ruin them. Totally different vibe. Think more, emotionally inconvenient and less. Call the authorities. I'm not a master manipulator or some evil genius. I once accidentally sent a spicy meme to my boss instead of my buddy Dave. But I do have something more powerful than genius. Time. Petty. Patience. 3 ingredients. Add just the right amount of each, and you get the kind of revenge that doesn't just sting, it lingers. The first order of business? I needed to move out. But I didn't want to move out sadly. No. I wanted my exit to feel like a Grammy performance. So I went back to the house while they were gone. Marissa was at work, Gary presumably somewhere being delusional, and I packed everything I owned, whistling like a man who had just discovered his favorite sports team cheated on him, and he was finally switching alliances. I took my clothes, my tools, my books, my video game consoles, everything that was mine. But I left behind things on purpose. The wedding album? Left that sucker right on the kitchen table, open to the page with our first dance. She cried when that picture was taken. Now it looks like foreshadowing. I even left a little sticky note on the bathroom mirror. It said, "Hope he's worth it. Also, he snores. Good luck." Classy, right? Now, here's where things get interesting. I didn't tell her I was moving out. I ghosted my own wife. Not because I wanted to play games, but because if she was going to make choices like that, I figured she didn't deserve the courtesy of closure. She called me that night. 5 missed calls, then a text. "Jake, where are you? Can we please talk?" I ignored it. Then another text. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out like that." Like that was the issue. Not the betrayal. Not the fact that she went full Game of Thrones on me and kept it in the family. No, it was how I found out. The audacity had me laughing so hard, I actually startled the cat at my buddy's place. Then Gary called. First time he'd called me in months. I stared at his name on the screen, Dad, and felt this bizarre mix of rage, sadness, and a weird kind of embarrassment. Like I'd been cheated on and made into the punchline of a really bad joke. I answered. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. "Jake," he said, voice all low and serious, like he was the one hurting. I didn't say anything. "I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go that far." "That far?" I said. "What, past holding hands? Or past her calling you daddy unironically?" He went quiet, and then I hung up. Because honestly, what was the point? What do you even say to your dad after that? "Hey, happy Father's Day, hope you're enjoying my wife." I decided right then. No more tears, no more sad boy energy. I wasn't going to sit around and mope while they played house. I was going to rise like a middle-aged phoenix from the ashes of betrayal, with better hair, a therapist, and a plan. The plan started with information. I needed to know how long this little family drama had been going on, and who knew about it. So I started talking to people. Quietly. Casually. My wife's best friend, Tina, was the first crack in the dam. "Oh," she said, when I bumped into her at the grocery store, and casually mentioned the breakup. "You know?" I raised an eyebrow. "Know what?" She froze. A full mouth of beer moment without the beer. "Tina," I said. "How long?" She looked at her shopping cart like it might rescue her. "I didn't want to get involved." I smiled. "You already are." And just like that, I had my first piece of the puzzle. Turns out, this wasn't a one-time lapse of judgment. This was a 6-month undercover operation. Birthday parties, holidays, Sunday dinners. This whole time, I'd been smiling and handing Gary the mashed potatoes while he was helping himself to my wife. That's when the light bulb went off. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a full-blown case of identity theft. They stole my trust, my home, my peace of mind. So now, I was gonna take something back. But not with fire. With finesse. The kind that makes people question their life choices while lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan, wondering how it all went so wrong. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's best served with appetizers, mood lighting, and a smug little smirk. After I found out this whole disaster had been going on for 6 months, I decided crying into my whiskey wasn't cutting it. What I needed was a plan that would make Marissa and Gary wish they'd just joined a bowling league instead. Now, I want to be clear. This wasn't about getting them back together or trying to make them jealous. Oh no! That ship sailed, caught fire, and sank somewhere off the coast of Are You Kidding Me? This was about balance. The universe had tipped too far into absurdity. I had to bring it back. So I made a checklist. Not a hit list. Again, I'm not a psychopath, but more like a grocery list of poetic justice. Item 1. Reputation control. Because guess what? When your wife runs off with your dad, people talk. And I didn't want the story to be, Jake couldn't satisfy her, or Jake was never around, or any other version of events that put the blame on me, the guy who didn't sleep with his in-laws. So I took back the narrative. Started small. Casual conversations. Just enough truth to make people tilt their heads and go, "Wait, what?" I didn't lie. I just gave people enough rope to connect the dots. At a mutual friend's barbecue, someone asked how Marissa and I were doing. I smiled. "Oh, we split. She's dating someone new now." "Oh, wow," they said. "Anyone we know?" I sipped my drink. "Yeah, my dad." And then I just stared at them. Let the silence settle. Watched the confusion bloom into horror like a slow-mo car crash. It was glorious. Item 2. Operation Moving On, aka Please think I'm thriving. Even if I wasn't okay yet, I wanted to look like I was. So I hit the gym. Not in a cliché, revenge body way. More in a, please God let me have one healthy coping mechanism kind of way. I changed my hair. Bought new clothes. Started posting Instagram stories with captions like, "New chapter man in lotus position," and "Growth season seedling dot." Every post carefully curated to say, "Hey, I'm doing fine without the two people who broke my entire world in half, thank you very much." And it worked. Within a week, Marissa viewed every story. She even liked a picture of me at a coffee shop, holding a book I haven't even read yet. I just picked it up for the aesthetic. Sue me. Item 3. The long game. Now here's where it got fun. See, Gary and I used to co-own a tiny rental property. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom duplex we inherited from my grandfather. Gary never wanted to sell it because real estate's king, son. But guess whose name was still on the paperwork? Mine. Guess who suddenly wanted to sell? I sent him a friendly little email. "Hey Gary. Hope all is well. Since we're both heading in different directions, understatement of the year, I think it's time we sell the duplex and go our separate ways. Let me know when you'd like to start the process. Jake. He didn't respond for 3 days. Then I got a reply that said, I'd like to discuss this in person. I bet you would, old man. But no thanks. No more face-to-face heart-to-hearts with the guy who shares my DNA, and now my dental hygienist, apparently. Small town. Don't ask. So I responded, I prefer to keep things in writing moving forward. Let me know when you're ready. That was the moment I knew I had the upper hand. Because I was calm. That's the most unnerving thing you can be after someone wrongs you, unbothered. Meanwhile, from what I heard through the grapevine, bless small-town gossip, things weren't exactly going swimmingly for Romeo and Juliet Sr. Apparently, Marissa thought she was trading up for a silver fox with a wild side. Instead, she got a cranky man who still refers to TikTok as the Tic-Tac and falls asleep watching old westerns. And Gary? He thought he was dating someone young and exciting. Turns out, Marissa's definition of exciting meant maxing out his credit card on skincare products and dragging him to bottomless mimosa brunches where he fell asleep mid-Bellini. Oh, and then there's the kicker, she moved into his place. Which meant all the alone time he used to cherish. Gone. Now he's got scented candles in the bathroom and a woman who wants to talk about our feelings during football. Couldn't have happened to a nicer couple. And me? I was just getting started. By the time week 4 rolled around, I'd achieved something I never thought possible. I was sleeping through the night again. No stress dreams, number 3 a.m. fridge staring sessions, no dramatic texting drafts that I'd never send but reread 14 times. Just me, a weighted blanket, and the peaceful knowledge that Marissa and my father were absolutely miserable together. How do I know? Because people talk. Especially in small towns, especially when the local gossip has plot twists. Apparently, once the novelty of their dirty little secret wore off, reality stepped in like a bouncer at last call. Gary's arthritis started flaring up, again. Not so sexy now, huh? Marissa, who once found his distinguished maturity attractive, suddenly realized she was dating a man who takes a fiber supplement every morning and complains if he doesn't poop by 10 a.m. And Gary? He figured out the hard way that Marissa wasn't all candlelit dinners and silk pajamas. She had opinions. And expectations. And a Pinterest board full of future baby names. Which, yeah, that put the fear of God in him. Meanwhile, I was in therapy. Yep. Real talk. Started seeing a guy named Kevin. Wore cardigans and asked questions like, "And what do you need, Jake?" At first, I wanted to flick him in the forehead. But after a few sessions, I started to get it. Turns out, I'd spent a lot of time trying to be the easy guy. The peacemaker. The one who said, "Sure, whatever you want," just to keep things smooth. And all that did was make me a doormat with Wi-Fi. So Kevin gave me homework. Do one thing just for you every week. So I did. Started playing guitar again. Joined a trivia night team. Bought cologne that didn't smell like a Walgreens clearance aisle. Even took salsa dancing lessons one night. I was terrible, but the instructor told me I had earnest shoulders, which I think was a compliment. I was becoming someone I liked. Someone interesting. Someone I barely recognized, in the best way. But like clockwork, just when I was starting to get my groove back, Marissa texted, "Hey, can we talk?" Ah, the classic. I didn't know what I had until I saw you smiling in that picture with the yoga instructor text. I didn't respond. I showed it to Kevin instead. He said, "What do you want to do?" So I thought about it. And then, like an idiot with a heart that still wanted answers, I agreed to meet up. Not because I missed her. Not because I wanted her back. But because curiosity is a hell of a drug, and I needed to see just how far the mighty had fallen. We met at a neutral place, some cafe downtown with exposed brick walls, and indie music playing so quietly it made you feel like you had to whisper your order. She was already sitting when I got there, sipping a chai latte like she hadn't imploded my entire reality. I sat down, said nothing, just raised my eyebrows like, "You called this meeting, boss? Let's hear it." She started with the usual. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just kind of happened. We were in a weird place. He made me feel seen." I stared at my coffee. "You know he says the word hashtag out loud, right? Like, hashtag winning." Unironically. She blinked. "He's not who I thought he was." I sipped my drink. "Yeah. Welcome to the club." Then she hit me with it. "I made a mistake." I looked up. Not angry. Not smug. Just calm. Like someone who'd finally done the math and realized they came out ahead. "I know," I said. "But here's the thing. I didn't." She blinked again. I could see it sinking in, that I wasn't there to forgive her or rescue her from her own mess. I was just done. I left money on the table, wished her luck, and walked out. No dramatic exits. No yelling in public. Just a clean break, and the sound of my boots hitting the sidewalk like a punctuation mark. On the way home, I felt lighter. Like I'd just donated emotional baggage to Goodwill. But I wasn't done. Not yet. See, Gary had one more soft spot. One little piece of leverage I'd been saving like a bottle of good scotch. His retirement party. It was coming up. And let's just say, I had plans for that little soiree. Because if I was going to get closure, I might as well get it in front of 50 of his closest friends and co-workers. With flair. There's a sacred moment in every man's life where he gets to ask himself, do I take the high road, or do I rent a bounce house of vengeance and serve hors d'oeuvres of poetic justice on a monogrammed platter? Gary's retirement party gave me that moment. And I didn't take the high road. But I did wear a really nice jacket, so I feel like it balanced out. Let me set the stage. Gary, after 42 years of being a general contractor, was finally hanging up his hard hat. The man hadn't lifted a hammer in 5 years, but he loved telling people, "I build things." So retirement hit him like a slow leak in his ego. Naturally, his co-workers and poker buddies threw him a party at the Elks Lodge. Nothing too fancy. Cheap catering, lukewarm meatballs, and one of those "Congratulations, Gary" banners that looked like it had survived 3 birthdays and a baby shower. But the guest list? Chef's kiss. Friends, extended family, former co-workers, and, of course, Marissa. The happy couple was still together. Barely. From what I heard, they'd already started sleeping in separate bedrooms, citing different sleep rhythms, which is code for, "We hate each other's breathing." I showed up 10 minutes late on purpose. Just enough to turn heads when I walked in. I wore a tailored charcoal suit, black shirt, no tie. Confident. Polished. Absolutely radiating the energy of a man who no longer gives a damn. And I brought a date. No, not a romantic one. I'm not that messy. I brought Becca, my old college friend who now works in PR, has a laugh that makes men drop their drinks, and once told me, "If you ever need someone to pretend to be your wildly successful girlfriend, I have 6 outfits and 0 shame." She showed up in a red dress with a back so low it violated at least 3 small-town moral codes. We walked in together, arm in arm, grinning like prom royalty on a vengeance tour. I spotted Gary before he saw me. He was holding a paper plate stacked with cheese cubes, talking to some guy about lake property. I watched the moment his brain registered my presence. His whole face did a little reboot. Eyebrows lifted, jaw clenched, pupils dilated. It was magical. Marissa turned, too. And oh, the expression on her face? It was the emotional equivalent of dropping your phone into a porta-potty. They didn't come over. But I made sure to catch their eye as Becca and I made the rounds, laughing, mingling, being effortlessly delightful. Now, I hadn't planned on saying anything publicly. I figured just showing up and being thriving would be enough. But then, they brought out the microphone. "Anyone want to say a few words about Gary?" the host asked. "Come on, don't be shy. He's retiring." I felt Becca squeeze my hand. "Don't," she whispered. But she was smiling when she said it. So naturally I stood up, walked slowly to the mic. People clapped politely. Gary looked like he was trying to disappear into his Dockers. I cleared my throat. "Hi everyone. I'm Jake, Gary's son. You may not have seen me around lately. I've been busy healing." A couple chuckles. Nervous ones. Beautiful. "I just want to say a few words about my dad. He taught me a lot over the years. How to ride a bike. How to grill a steak. How to catch a fish." Pause. "And more recently, how to completely disappoint your entire bloodline in one deeply disturbing romantic decision." Dead silence. Except for Becca, who let out a soft, theatrical gasp. I smiled. "But hey," I continued, "this isn't about the past. It's about celebrating Gary. A man who has always followed his heart, even if it led him straight into his daughter-in-law's DMs." A plate clattered to the floor somewhere. "I just hope retirement gives him plenty of time to reflect on the importance of boundaries, and maybe read a book on Greek tragedies, because let's face it, this one had Oedipus vibes." I raised my plastic cup. "To Gary, may your golden years be filled with peace, forgiveness, and separate Netflix accounts." A few people actually laughed. One guy near the potato salad audibly said, "Oh my God." I walked back to my seat, heart pounding, hands steady. Gary looked like he'd swallowed a golf ball. Marissa had that tight, shaky smile people wear when they've made irreversible life decisions. It was everything I wanted. Not mean. Not cruel. Just honest. Public. And just uncomfortable enough to stick to their memories, like glitter on carpet. Later, Becca and I left together. She high-fived me in the parking lot and said, 10 out of 10. Would fake date again. And me? I drove home, windows down, music up, feeling more alive than I had in months. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. But I wasn't done. Because healing is great, but a little more chaos? Well, that's just good closure. After the retirement party mic drop, I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. I slept like a man who'd finally thrown out a cursed object. I woke up the next morning with one singular, echoing thought in my head. Let's make this life unrecognizable. Not out of spite, but out of stubborn, glorious, neon-lit self-worth. I started with the house. I'd moved out of our old place, of course. Marissa and Gary were busy playing The Sims in my former marital bed. But now that the dust had settled, I realized. I didn't want a bachelor pad. I wanted a kingdom. A space that screamed, "This man has been through hell," and came out with hardwood floors and emotional maturity. So I bought a little fixer-upper just outside town. 3 bedrooms, old brick chimney, wrap-around porch. It had character. And by character, I mean squirrels in the attic and wallpaper that had seen things. But it was mine. And with a little sweat, some elbow grease, and several YouTube tutorials featuring Australians saying, "Mate," a lot, I made it beautiful. Exposed beams. Deep blue walls. A home office that didn't double as a laundry room. And a kitchen with a wine rack I absolutely did not need, but installed anyway, because damn it, I deserve aesthetics. Then came the letter. Not a text. Not an email. A letter, folded neatly in a pink envelope with loopy handwriting I knew all too well. It was from Marissa. Jake, I've been thinking a lot. About us. About what happened. About what I lost. It went on for a while. Apologies. Regrets. Vague poetic language that made it sound like she accidentally stepped on my heart in the driveway instead of launching it into orbit with my father. But the kicker? I miss the way you made me feel safe. Safe. The irony practically peeled the paint off my walls. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I didn't need to say them anymore. That's the thing about closure. Once you have it, you realize you don't need permission to move on. Besides, I had other things going on. Like, brace yourself, I started dating again. And let me tell you, modern dating at 38 is a fever dream wrapped in a dumpster fire. There are apps now, with bios, and filters, and people who list spiritual under religion but also sell crystals shaped like frogs. But eventually, I matched with someone real. Lena. Divorced? Funny. Pediatric nurse with a sarcastic streak and a dog named Pancake who hates men but loved me instantly, so I took that as a good omen. Our first date was nothing fancy, just tacos and beers and laughter that came easier than it should have. By the end of the night, I wasn't thinking about Marissa or Gary. I was thinking about Lena's laugh and how she said the phrase, emotional buffoon, like it was an official medical diagnosis. She didn't save me. I wasn't looking to be saved. But she reminded me that there are people out there who don't bring their personal wrecking balls to relationships. Meanwhile, Gary and Marissa? Oh, they were thriving, if by thriving you mean fighting loudly in public and unfollowing each other on Facebook every other week. Tina, Marissa's best friend and my unofficial double agent, kept me updated like a gossip concierge. They argued at brunch over a waffle. A waffle, Jake. Gary's been sleeping in his recliner. Marissa's been talking about moving to Arizona for space. She tried to flirt with her personal trainer. He declined. Respectfully. Reader, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, but out of relief. That part of my life, the lies, the manipulation, the emotional whiplash, it was someone else's problem now. I had bigger things to focus on. Like therapy, guitar, Pancake the judgmental dog, and Lena, who once called me a soft-hearted bulldozer, and said she meant it as a compliment. So yeah, the world didn't end. It just got a lot quieter, more intentional. But don't worry, we're not done yet. Because sometimes, when you're minding your own business and healing like a responsible adult, life decides to throw one final juicy twist your way. And this next one? Oh, it's a doozy. So there I was, living in my new house, dating Lena, finally figuring out how to fold a fitted sheet, okay, mostly, when I got the text. And not just any text. It was from Tina. Remember her? Marissa's best friend turned part-time informant and full-time brunch enthusiast. She's the kind of woman who says, "I'm not trying to stir the pot," right before throwing the lid across the room and dumping in cayenne. Her message said, "You sitting down?" And I already knew, when someone opens with that, you better grab a snack and find a seat. Marissa's pregnant. It's Gary's. I read it 3 times. Blinked. Read it again. Then I burst out laughing. Full body, can't catch your breath, wheezing laughter. I actually scared Pancake, who was peacefully chewing on a tennis ball, and now looked personally offended. Let me just say this clearly for the people in the back. My ex-wife is pregnant by my father. You ever laugh so hard you cry, but you're not sure if it's joy, pain, or just the cosmic absurdity of it all? That was me. On my couch. Alone. holding my phone like it was the final plot twist in a soap opera no one greenlit. I called Lena later that night. Told her everything, half expecting her to be weirded out. Honestly, I wouldn't blame her. But she just said, "Oh wow, this is like watching an episode of Maury, except the budget is lower and the shame is higher." Reader, I swooned. So here's the thing. Apparently Marissa hadn't meant to get pregnant. Shocking, I know. She told people it just happened, which is one of those phrases that makes my left eye twitch. Like she tripped and fell onto my dad's. You know what, never mind. The family, as you can imagine, was in chaos. My mom? She called me crying. Not because she wanted to get back with Gary. They'd been divorced since I was in college, but because, and I quote, "I never wanted to say my ex-husband got our son's ex-wife pregnant, but now it's real, and I need wine." I bought her a case. Cabernet. The kind that's so strong it tastes like regret and burns away memories. Gary tried to reach out again. Texted me some half-baked, "I hope we can be family again." Nonsense. I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? Cool. Can't wait to be my own brother's stepson. I started journaling just to keep track of how absurd my life had become. Here's a real entry from that week. Tuesday. Ran 5K. Pancake pooped in the neighbor's yard, again. Ex-wife is growing my dad's child. Remembered to buy almond milk. Emotionally stable? TBD. Honestly, I was proud of myself. The old me? He would have spiraled. Gotten sad. Bitter. Maybe tried to fight Gary in a Chili's parking lot. But now? I was zen. I was borderline serene. Mostly because every time I remembered the situation, it was just too ridiculous to take personally anymore. And let's talk about Lena for a second. That woman? Unshakable. She stood by me like she'd been training for this kind of dysfunction her whole life. We started spending more time together. Pancake even let her rub his belly. I think that's the dog equivalent of a standing ovation. She'd say things like, "Your ex is chaotic evil, and your dad is emotionally bankrupt, but you're solid." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Because the truth is, their choices? Not my responsibility. Their drama? Not my mess. Their weird, twisted, biblically confusing situation? A fire I didn't start and wasn't about to throw gasoline on. But I'll be honest with you, there was one thing I couldn't shake. This baby? That kid would be my half-sibling. Also my ex-wife's child. And technically, my son or daughter's uncle or aunt if I ever had kids. Which means my kid would share a DNA strand with a person who used to call me babe. You can't even diagram that on a whiteboard without a headache. Still, part of me felt something. Not anger. Not sadness. Just disbelief. A quiet kind of awe. Like watching someone drive a car into a lake and then act surprised that it sank. But don't worry, I wasn't about to start showing up to ultrasounds or buying baby shower gifts. Instead, I was about to close the book, burn the last few pages, and move on for good. But not before one final surprise. Because, as it turns out, Marissa wasn't done yet. So, the baby was happening. The gossip mill was spinning like a ceiling fan in hell. Gary was reportedly reading What to Expect When You're Expecting, like it was a hostage manual, and Marissa had started posting cryptic, heartfelt captions on social media like, "Sometimes the greatest blessings come wrapped in chaos," which is inspirational code for, "My life is a Category 5 hurricane, but at least I'm pretending it's a yoga retreat." I figured that was the final chapter. Surely, the story had hit peak absurdity. Then I got the knock at the door. Literally. A knock. Pancake barked like a demon. I looked through the peephole, and nearly choked on my protein bar. Marissa. On my porch. Very pregnant. Wearing sunglasses and holding a reusable tote bag like she was just swinging by to borrow a cup of sugar and not, rip open old wounds like they were bubble wrap. I opened the door halfway. No smile. No warmth. Just a polite deadpan. "Can I help you?" She looked at me for a long moment, like she was trying to scan my face for any remaining feelings she could manipulate like a Rubik's Cube. "Can we talk?" she said. I glanced behind her, half expecting to see Gary skulking around in the bushes, but no, it was just her. Solo. Rogue mission. "About what?" I asked, already 80% done with the conversation, and we hadn't even started. She pulled out a small envelope from the tote, handed it to me like it was a subpoena or a cursed relic. I opened it. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. By Gary. "Jake, I know you probably won't read this, but I need to say it anyway. Spoiler, I didn't read the rest." I folded it back up and handed it right back. "Look," Marissa said. "I didn't come here to stir things up. I came because, I don't know, I guess I needed you to know I'm not okay." I blinked, and I said something I never thought I'd hear myself say. "That's not my problem anymore." And I meant it. You could actually see it land on her. That sentence. Like a slap made of silence. She took off her sunglasses slowly, eyes red, mascara barely hanging in there. The facade was slipping. She sat down on the porch bench like she owned the place. She didn't. Took a shaky breath. "I thought this baby would fix everything." "Yeah," I said. "That's not what babies do." She nodded like I'd just given her the cheat code to emotional stability, but it was too little too late. And then, here it came, the big reveal. "I was wrong," she said. "About him. About us. I keep thinking, if I had just stayed, if I had chosen you." My whole spine turned into one long sarcastic eyebrow. "I know it's crazy," she continued. "But sometimes I think, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you and I." I held up a hand, like a traffic cop for nonsense. "No." She blinked. "No. That sentence ends here. You don't get to rewrite the story now just because your second choice turned into a human dumpster fire. You made your choices. And I made mine." She looked down at her stomach, then back at me. "So that's it?" "Yup." And then, because I'm me, and I can never resist a dramatic exit when life tees it up. "I hope the baby's healthy. I hope you figure out what you actually want. But you don't get to come back here just because it's not working out somewhere else. That's not love. That's insurance fraud." I stepped back, held the door open like a gentleman and said, "Take care, Marissa." She walked off the porch without a word. Didn't look back. Pancake watched her waddle down the path and let out one long sigh like, "Finally." I closed the door, leaned against it, and just stood there. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. Like a man who finally finished a book he hated, just so he could say he did. And the best part? There was still more life waiting for me. New chapters. Real ones. With people who show up. With love that doesn't confuse chaos for passion. With a future that isn't built on apologies and duct tape. But before we jump into that happy ending, there's still one last story to tell. One final twist. Because sometimes healing means laughing at what almost broke you. And sometimes it means showing up to the hospital with a gift card and a smirk. 2 months later, the baby arrived. A healthy baby girl. Tina was the first to tell me. Honestly, I think she lives for this drama like it's her second job. She texted. She named the baby Hope. I'm not making that up. Of course she did. Marissa naming her daughter, Hope, is like a raccoon crawling out of a flaming dumpster and naming her baby. Clean slate. But hey, healthy kid. That's what matters. I'm not a monster. I wish them well, from a very safe emotional distance. I didn't expect to be part of it. I mean, why would I? The woman cheated on me with my dad. There's no Hallmark card for that. But then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. It was Gary. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. First one in months. Hey Jake, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say, she's here. She's beautiful. I named you as her godfather. Pause. I played it again. And again. And then I sat there for a full 5 minutes in stunned, confused silence. Godfather? Of what? Chaos? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. But the idea festered in the back of my brain like one of those itches you know you shouldn't scratch, but also, what the hell? A week later, Lena and I were having brunch. Yes, we're still going strong. Yes, Pancake has a drawer at her place. She saw me staring off into the abyss over my eggs and said, "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" I nodded. Is it crazy that I kind of want to go? To see the baby? To see them. One last time. Not for them. For me. She put down her mimosa and said, Then go. But go on your terms. That's all I needed to hear. So I went. Not to the house. To the hospital. I dressed sharp. Clean shave. New watch Lena gave me. I walked in with a gift bag containing a very tasteful and extremely passive-aggressive onesie that said, I'm living proof that bad decisions sometimes work out. I told you, petty but elegant. When I walked into the room, the temperature dropped like someone had opened a fridge full of shame. Gary was holding the baby. Marissa was in the hospital bed, pale but glowing in that I just did something biologically impressive kind of way. They both looked at me like I was the ghost of Christmas consequences. Jake, Marissa said softly. I nodded. Congratulations. I looked down at the baby. Tiny. Wrinkled. Pink little fists curled up, like she was ready to box someone. Honestly, respect. She's beautiful, I said. And I meant it. Gary looked nervous. I, wasn't sure if you'd come. Well, I said, handing him the bag, I figured someone should welcome her into this world with a little honesty. He opened the bag, pulled out the onesie, read it, and winced. Marissa cracked a smile. Just for a second. Then it disappeared. You named me the Godfather? I asked. Gary cleared his throat. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted you to be part of something. I looked him dead in the eyes. You had your chance to be part of something. You threw it away for a midlife crisis in yoga pants. Marissa opened her mouth to say something, but I raised a hand. No speeches. No explanations. I'm not here to forgive or forget. I'm here to close the door. That baby? She didn't ask for any of this. So I hope you raise her better than you treated me. That's all I'll say. And then, because even I have a soft side, I pulled a second gift out of my coat pocket. A check. Small. Modest. Enough to buy diapers for a month or two. It was labeled, For Hope, Not You. I placed it on the side table, turned, and walked out. No hugs. No tears. No lingering glances. Just peace. I stepped outside, took a deep breath, and smiled at the sky like someone who just finished uninstalling malware from their life. Back in the car, Lena was waiting. She brought snacks. A queen. Well, she said. All done, I said. Feels good. She handed me a granola bar and said, You're weirdly hot when you're emotionally evolved. I grinned. Because after all the madness, all the betrayal, all the nights staring at the ceiling wondering why me. I had the one thing they didn't. Closure. And a life still wide open with possibility. Life after drama is weird. It's quiet. Still. Peaceful in a way that feels almost suspicious. Like walking into a party and not hearing music and wondering if you're early or just no longer invited. Turns out, I wasn't early or uninvited. I just left the wrong party and found a better one down the street. Let me paint the picture for you. It's Saturday morning. Late spring. Windows open, breeze coming through. Lena's in the kitchen in one of my old hoodies, flipping French toast like it's a sport. Pancake is snoring aggressively on the rug like he pays rent. And I'm sitting at the table, barefoot, sipping coffee from a mug that says, "Emotionally stable and mildly petty." We're talking about going to the farmer's market later. Maybe grabbing lunch. Maybe not. No pressure. No tension. Just two people enjoying a slow morning, unbothered by the chaos of the past. My phone buzzes. I don't flinch anymore. It's a picture. From Tina. Hope, Marissa and Gary's baby, is 6 weeks old now. In the photo, she's wrapped up in a yellow blanket, eyes open wide, like she just realized what family she was born into. Underneath the photo, Tina wrote, "She looks like you. Isn't that weird?" I smile. Because it is weird. But also kind of poetic. A little piece of the universe saying, "Hey, I didn't forget you. Here's something bizarre but oddly beautiful." I show Lena the photo. She says, "She's got your I don't trust this situation face." We laugh. Then we move on. Because that's what healing looks like. You don't pretend the past didn't happen. You just stop inviting it to breakfast. Gary and Marissa? I don't hear much from them now. I know they're trying. I know they're overwhelmed. I know Hope was probably meant to be symbolic, but raising a kid with someone who betrayed half the dinner table is more than symbolic. It's exhausting. And me? I don't need revenge anymore. I got what I really wanted all along. A life that feels like mine again. The house is full of music these days. I started recording little guitar pieces on weekends. Lena sings along sometimes, off-key, and I love it. I framed a picture of Pancake wearing sunglasses and put it by the front door like a welcome sign for chaos-free living. We're not rushing anything. We're just being. Loving, laughing, occasionally arguing about whether waffles are superior to pancakes. I remain neutral for diplomatic reasons. And someday, maybe there'll be a ring. Maybe a kid. Maybe a road trip with too many snacks and bad directions. Or maybe just more mornings like this one. Either way, I'm good. Really good. So if you've ever been where I was, if your heart's ever been sucker punched by the very people you thought would protect it, just know, it gets better. Not overnight. Not cleanly. But eventually. You'll laugh again. You'll dance in the kitchen again. You'll meet someone who doesn't just want you, but sees you. And one day, you'll wake up next to peace and realize, you never want to go